Usually root vegetables grow seeds, but potatoes have a secret. They grow more potatoes when you plant them directly in soil. And I had my doubts, so I tried it myself, and not just with regular potatoes, but sweet potatoes too. And what happened here makes me question who would ever want to just buy a potato when you can go from zero to potato hero in just 2 months. Well, it all started with one little bag of potatoes from the grocery store. And listen, if you want to ascend the ranks of potato royalty and make your backyard the trendiest spot in town, follow these steps carefully. Well, I tried to choose a bag of potatoes that looked like it had potatoes in it that were already slightly sprouting. I removed the first potato, examined the little roots poking out of it, and I learned that these little roots are also known as the eyes of the potato. The term eyes has been used historically to describe the slightly raised, round in shape little growths found on the potatoes. It's a pretty common term in gardening and agriculture to refer to those spots where new shoots can emerge. So basically, these little eyes serve as the starting point for the sprouts to emerge when planting the potatoes in soil, and that leads to new growth of potato plants. Well, this was really cool. And before I ever planted potatoes, I honestly found it quite hard to believe that this was in fact true, that you could grow a potato from a potato. So I started cutting some of these potatoes in half, placed them in a little bed of soil with the eyes facing down. It's okay if your potato doesn't have eyes, just look for the parts in the potato where there are little dots or dimples, and that's where the eyes eventually grow from, and that's the part that you can cut and plant in soil. So I put them straight in soil and waited until it grew long stems, and after about 2 weeks, it was already ready for a repotting. I started to realize that growth was gonna happen here very fast here with potatoes, and we would go from zero to hero very quick. So I placed it in its new home and waited some more, but I got to admit, I was quite nervous here because I did hear a little rumor that apparently the potatoes you buy from the grocery store are not often suitable for planting because they're more often than not treated to prevent sprouting. But I wasn't gonna know until I tried it myself, and since we got this plant growing good, I knew that wasn't true. The stems were oddly long, and that didn't worry me one bit. But as we well know, this was the very first time that I ever tried growing potatoes. So I wasn't sure exactly what would happen, but based on my research I was doing, we would grow more potatoes and not just the seeds of potatoes, like what happens when you plant other root vegetables like carrots. Well, time continued to pass, and after just 4 weeks, that plant was looking incredible. And I ended up getting very anxious to see if we grew any potatoes. And we did! I was very, very excited. But we didn't get very many, and I was a little bit sad. But I figured, you know what? We have this entire plant left. Let's just replant it and leave it for 16 weeks instead of just 8, and give it a little more patience and see if it grows a nicer amount of potatoes. Because if you know anything about this channel, we persevere and we fight and we do not give up until we grow the fruits, or in this case, veggies. So, you already know I did just that. And I added a nice big potato that I found in the soil, added both the plant stem and the sprouting potato back into a new home, and waited. I also cut the stems off of the plant so that new growth could take place. Plus, I also had a few more potatoes inside my kitchen that had some eyes sprouting, so I decided to add them to the soil to fully optimize our chances of successfully growing an abundance of potatoes, and not just a few. And I was pumped to see what would happen. Before I knew it, our baby potatoes were growing back and we had another plant, and although it started off small but mighty, it grew big, tall, and fast. It started to grow flowers, and once it grew big enough and 16 whole weeks passed, I decided to start digging in the soil for some potatoes. And plus, the winter was fast approaching here in Canada, so I had to do this sooner rather than later. I took the plant out of the pot and examined it carefully. Our harvest was looking real good. I kind of wished I planted them in an even bigger pot so that I gave them even more room to grow, but for my first time growing potatoes successfully, or technically the second time since this was the replanted one, I think we did really well. I did a last little check to make sure we didn't miss any little potatoes hiding in the soil, and then I admired the ones that I picked for a couple minutes, thanking nature for gifting me these beautiful potatoes that I literally grew with my own hands, and I was trying to decide what to do with them. Eat them raw, cook them, I don't even know. They were like children. But that's a pretty fantastic harvest if I do say so myself, thank you very much. And along the way, I got curious about sweet potatoes and whether or not you could take a sweet potato just like a regular potato, plant it in soil, and in 16 weeks get more sweet potatoes. I really wanted baby sweet potatoes, okay? At first, I thought the process would be the same for sweet potatoes, but I quickly learned that it was not, and I'm gonna tell you about that in a second. But I got my hands on a sweet potato and I did two things. I placed one in a glass jar of water to propagate in, and I placed the other in soil to see if we could grow potatoes under the soil. This was the progress of the propagating sweet potato, and it turned into such a beautiful vine. I really recommend planting a sweet potato if you want a long trailing vine, either indoor or outdoor in your garden. But upon planting this sweet potato and seeing no other potatoes grow from it, I waited a little bit longer to see if anything would happen. This was the progress of that plant and the soil. And 16 weeks later, I started to dig, and when I couldn't find any sweet potatoes, I was confused, to say the least. But I learned that sweet potatoes and regular potatoes belong to different plant species. As a result, they have different methods of propagation, and that's why they're grown differently, and why sweet potatoes don't grow from planting a sweet potato, but regular potatoes do. Sweet potatoes are typically grown from slips or vine cuttings, and these slips are basically small sprouts or rooted cuttings that grow from the mature sweet potato plants. And while sweet potatoes do produce eyes similar to regular potatoes, these are actually not used for propagation to grow more potatoes because they don't grow true to the type, and they may not yield the same sweet potato variety, if any at all, like what happened to us. But regular potatoes, on the other hand, are grown from seed potatoes, and these are the small potatoes or the little potato pieces that contain at least one little eye or that little bud, so that when you plant it in the ground, those eyes sprout into new potato plants and you get more potatoes. So in summary, sweet potatoes are propagated from vine cuttings or slips, while regular potatoes are grown from the eyes or the buds on the actual potatoes. The difference in propagation methods is just really due to the genetic and botanical distinctions between the two types of potatoes, but I thought this was so cool. And as sad as I was that I didn't get sweet potatoes this year, I was really happy that I was able to harvest nature's gift of regular potatoes and learn a lot about how to actually grow sweet potatoes. And you know exactly what I had to do with my regular potatoes. I turned them into the most delicious potatoes ever for my family. And that, my friends, is how exactly to go from zero to potato hero in just 2 months. It all started with one potato with eyes, and that eventually turned into a few regular potato plants that we actually harvested baby potatoes from and cooked, and a whole sweet potato journey that taught me exactly what to do so that you can try this at home and grow them successfully the first time, rather than waiting a couple years to do it right. That's what I'm here for. I'm so happy we got some potatoes, and I actually just planted some more potatoes in my new garden box that I built, so make sure you stay tuned on how this summer's potato harvest goes in just a few weeks. But I just wanted to thank you so much for watching my channel this week. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. It would mean the world to me if you didn't forget to like, comment, follow, subscribe. Always remember that
I love you.
And know that on this channel, we take the seeds or eyes from inside exotic fruits and grow them into full-blown houseplants that fruit. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next week.